every day, people spend too much time explaining why they failed, why they're not ready, why others don't understand them. But let me tell you something, the world doesn't listen to explanations, it watches transformation. When you keep explaining, you're stuck defending your past. When you start evolving, you begin designing your future. The moment you stop trying to prove who you are and start working on who you can become, everything changes. Every day, we find ourselves trying to explain our choices, our dreams, our failures, and our timing to people who may never truly understand what we are trying to do. We explain why we started late, why we didn't succeed yet, or why we took a different path from others. But the more we explain, the more we drain our own energy convincing people who already made up their minds. The truth is, the world rarely listens to explanations. It pays attention to evolution. Growth speaks a language that words never can. The moment you stop explaining, you start freeing yourself from the need for validation, and that freedom becomes the fuel for your evolution. Most people explain because they want acceptance. They fear being misunderstood, so they try to justify their actions. But misunderstanding is a part of every journey that matters. No one who ever did something different was fully understood in the beginning. People laugh at ideas before they admire them. They doubt you before they respect you. That's how it has always been. So instead of defending yourself, use that time to improve yourself. Every second you spend trying to prove your worth could be a second spent increasing it. Every explanation steals from your progress. Let your work, your consistency, and your growth become the proof that no words could ever deliver. The world believes in results, not reasons. You can explain your struggles 1,000 times, but people still won't see what you see. However, when your evolution turns into achievement, when your patience becomes progress, when your silence turns into success, they will suddenly start to notice. And the beautiful thing is, by then you won't even care who notices. Because by evolving, you've outgrown the need for approval. That's the secret. The moment you evolve, the noise around you becomes irrelevant. You start to live with quiet confidence, not loud justification. Evolution is not about speed, it's about direction. It's about small steps every day that make you better than who you were yesterday. You don't need to announce your growth. It will show in your results. You don't need to explain why you're changing. Those who are meant to understand will see it. When you evolve, your mindset shifts from asking for permission to creating possibilities. You begin to see that real growth doesn't require applause. The flower doesn't explain why it blooms, it just does, and people notice. Be like that. Focus on your evolution, not on your explanation. When you stop explaining, you also stop overthinking. You stop waiting for others to validate your pace or your progress. You stop letting people's opinions shape your belief in yourself. Instead, you focus on the process, the learning, the failing, the rebuilding. You understand that every phase of your journey has a purpose, even the slow ones, even the lonely ones. Growth happens in silence. The most powerful transformations often take place when no one is watching. While others talk, you build. While others explain, you evolve. People who evolve never waste time convincing others. They understand that the best way to respond to doubt is to become undeniable. They channel frustration into motivation, criticism into clarity, and rejection into direction. When others question their choices, they simply keep moving. Because those who evolve know something very few people understand: evolution doesn't require an audience. You don't need people to see your process to prove it's working. You just need to keep showing up for yourself again and again until your results start speaking for you. You'll notice that once you focus on evolving instead of explaining, your energy changes. You start to care less about opinions and more about impact. You stop reacting to negativity because you're too busy becoming better. The noise outside loses its power when your inner voice becomes stronger. You realize that silence is not weakness. It's strategy. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows that time will tell the truth. You start to move differently, think differently, and act differently because now you are guided by purpose, not pressure. Evolution also teaches patience. When you're busy proving yourself, you want quick validation. But when you're evolving, you understand that growth takes time. The best version of you is not built overnight. It's built through discipline, through resilience, through the small, invisible actions no one claps for. While others are busy explaining their intentions, you're improving your skills. While others are looking for sympathy, you're creating strength. And one day, when the results arrive, the same people who doubted you will start asking how you did it. That is the quiet power of evolution. It transforms you from someone who needs to be understood into someone who simply cannot be ignored. When you evolve, your story changes without you having to rewrite it. Your life starts explaining itself through your actions, your progress, and your persistence. You stop needing to say, I will prove them wrong, because you're already doing it by growing beyond their expectations. When you let your growth speak for you, you begin to understand that silence can carry more weight than explanation ever could. Growth is not something you shout about. It's something people eventually feel, notice, and respect without you saying a word. There is a quiet authority that comes from progress. When you focus on improving yourself, you stop chasing recognition and start attracting it. You don't need to convince people to see your effort when your results become undeniable. The louder your results, the quieter you can become, because true growth doesn't compete for attention. It naturally commands it. Most people waste their energy trying to make others believe in them. They talk about what they will do, how hard they're working, or how much they've struggled. But none of that matters as much as what they actually create. Talking about your growth and living your growth are two completely different things. One needs approval, the other builds it naturally. When your focus shifts from proving to improving, everything changes. The energy you used to spend defending yourself gets redirected toward developing yourself. You stop trying to be seen, and you start being felt. Growth doesn't require an audience. It requires consistency. It requires a mindset that says, I don't need to tell anyone what I'm doing. I just need to keep doing it. The more you work quietly, the more powerful your results become. Because silence breeds strength. You don't reveal your process, but your results will make people curious. They'll wonder how you transformed, how you built something from nothing, how you became so capable. That curiosity is the proof that your growth is speaking louder than your words. When you let growth speak, you also stop arguing with people who don't understand your path. You realize that no amount of explanation will make them see your vision until it turns into reality. You cannot teach people what they refuse to see, but you can show them through your evolution. The best revenge, the best response, the best statement you can ever make is progress. Because people may not listen to your words, but they will always respect your results. Growth turns doubt into respect and silence into power. There is a stage in life where you must learn to move quietly. You learn that you don't owe anyone your plans or your reasons. You learn that real power is found in privacy. You don't announce every step. You don't post every progress. And you don't explain every choice. You just keep building, learning, and evolving. Over time, your growth becomes visible in your attitude, in your work, and in the way you handle challenges. People start to notice the difference. They start to see a stronger, calmer, more focused version of you. And that's when you realize that growth has a voice of its own. Subtle but undeniable. You'll meet people who won't believe in you until they see you succeed. Don't take it personally. That's human nature. Some people only believe in results, not effort. So instead of wasting your breath convincing them, spend that time creating something they can't ignore. Let your results answer their doubts. Every achievement, every improvement, every small win becomes a statement that says, I didn't need to explain myself, I just needed to evolve. This mindset not only saves your energy, but also protects your peace. You no longer get distracted by opinions because your focus is on elevation, not explanation. Letting growth speak also teaches humility. Because when you're truly growing, you don't have to brag about it. You understand that success doesn't come from noise, it comes from persistence. You learn to be grateful for the process, to find value in the lessons, and to appreciate the journey even when nobody else sees it. Growth teaches you patience. The patience to keep going even when recognition is nowhere in sight. You start to enjoy the quiet moments of progress because they belong only to you. And that ownership, that inner satisfaction becomes your strength. The beauty of letting growth speak is that it builds credibility that no explanation can. People can argue with your words, but they can't deny your evolution. They might doubt your plans, but they can't question your outcomes. Growth makes your journey self-evident. The people who ignored you before will start listening. The ones who doubted you will start asking for advice. But by that time, you will have learned the greatest lesson, that you never needed their belief to begin with. You only needed to keep believing in yourself long enough for your growth to speak for you. When growth speaks, it doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to justify or defend. It simply exists, steady, visible, and undeniable. It changes how others see you, but more importantly, it changes how you see yourself. You begin to realize that your story doesn't need explanation because your evolution is already telling it. The quiet progress, the consistent effort, the unseen discipline, all of it becomes the voice that tells the world who you are becoming. Silence is not weakness. It is a form of strength that most people underestimate. When you learn to stay silent and let your actions speak, you start to realize how much energy you save by not reacting to every opinion or criticism. Silence gives you space to think, to observe, and to evolve without distraction. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, being silent becomes powerful because it shows control. It means you are focused on progress, not noise. You no longer waste time explaining your choices or defending your dreams. You use that time to work on yourself. That's where the real transformation begins. In the quiet moments when nobody is watching, but everything is changing. People often mistake silence for surrender, but silence can be the strongest form of resistance. When others talk, argue, or gossip, you stay focused. You let them speak while you build. You let them doubt while you plan. You let them question while you execute. Over time, silence turns into something people notice because results born in silence are louder than words ever could be. When you learn to hold your peace while working, your energy shifts from seeking validation to creating impact. You stop trying to be understood and start aiming to be undeniable. There is power in not reacting. When you respond to every comment, you give others control over your emotions. But when you choose silence, you take that control back. You don't need to argue your value to those who cannot see it. You don't need to prove your worth to people who measure you by their limited standards. Silence keeps you grounded in your own path. It allows you to focus on becoming better, not bitter. It gives you clarity because you are no longer chasing the need to be right in someone else's eyes. You are chasing growth for yourself. Silence teaches discipline. It teaches patience. It helps you understand that growth is not something you talk about. It's something you show. The more you evolve, the less you feel the urge to explain. Because when you know where you are going, you don't have to announce every step. You realize that noise doesn't build anything. Work does. The quiet achievers, the ones who focus on consistency rather than attention, are the ones who end up leading. They don't need to shout their intentions. Their results are their voice. And that voice is powerful enough to silence doubt. When you are silent, you start hearing what others miss. You start noticing patterns, understanding people, and reading situations better. You learn that speaking less and observing more gives you an advantage. The loudest person in the room may get attention, but the quiet one gets information, and information builds strategy. Silence allows you to think clearly without the pressure of being judged in real time. You can refine your ideas in private and let them unfold in public when they're ready. That's how quiet people win, not by noise, but by preparation. Staying silent doesn't mean you accept defeat. It means you are wise enough to know when words won't help. Arguments drain energy that could be used for progress. Silence, on the other hand, preserves your strength. It helps you maintain focus on what truly matters, your evolution. There's a difference between being silent out of fear and being silent out of control. The first is weakness. The second is mastery. When you are confident in your direction, you don't have to explain it. You let time prove you right. You let your growth become the evidence. People who understand the power of silence are often misunderstood. Others think they're passive or indifferent, but in reality, they're just prioritizing peace over performance. They know that not everything deserves a reaction, and not everyone deserves an explanation. Their silence is not emptiness, it's protection. It protects their focus, their energy, and their purpose. Because when you're constantly explaining yourself, you're living for others. But when you choose silence, you're living for yourself. In the process of evolution, silence becomes a companion. It keeps you humble when you start succeeding and strong when you face challenges. It reminds you that you don't have to prove your worth with words. Your persistence will prove it for you. There's something powerful about watching people who once doubted you start to question how you did it. That's the result of silent work. It turns disbelief into curiosity and curiosity into respect. And all of that happens because you chose not to argue or justify, but to focus and grow. The quiet achievers of this world understand that silence creates mystery, and mystery creates respect. When people can't predict your next move, they start paying attention. When they can't read your emotions, they start wondering what gives you strength. That's the invisible power of silence. It makes you unpredictable, calm, and focused. You stop playing the game of constant explanation, and you start mastering the art of strategic patience. You move when it's time, speak when it matters, and let your evolution fill in every gap your silence once created. When you start growing, not everyone will celebrate you. Some people will question your choices, some will doubt your abilities, and some will quietly hope you fail. That is the reality of progress. When you decide to evolve, you automatically outgrow the comfort zone that keeps others content, and that can make people uncomfortable. The moment you step forward, you create distance between who you were and who you are becoming, and not everyone is ready to accept that distance. But you cannot shrink yourself to make others feel comfortable. You cannot slow your growth to match the pace of those who refuse to move. The world will always have opinions, but your job is not to please it. Your job is to outgrow it. Outgrowing opinions means learning to stop seeking approval. It means realizing that you don't need validation from those who haven't walked your path. You will always have something to say, especially when they see you changing. Some will think you've become arrogant, some will think you've lost touch, and others will think you've forgotten your roots. But growth doesn't mean forgetting where you came from. It means refusing to stay where you no longer belong. The people who truly understand evolution will support your progress without needing explanations. Those who don't will try to hold you back with their words. You have to choose which voice to listen to. When you start to outgrow opinions, you become more selective about the noise you allow into your life. You stop reacting to every comment, every criticism, every misunderstanding. You realize that not every voice deserves your attention. The more you evolve, the more you learn that silence is stronger than defense. You don't need to argue with people who can't see your vision. You don't need to explain your path to those who are stuck in theirs. Everyone views the world through their own experience, and their opinions are often reflections of their own limitations. When you understand that, their words lose power over you. Outgrowing opinions also means learning to trust yourself. When you are guided by your own conviction instead of other people's approval, you become unstoppable. You stop making decisions based on what others expect and start doing what aligns with your purpose. You stop being afraid of being misunderstood. You stop waiting for the perfect moment or the right support. You realize that growth requires courage. The courage to move forward even when no one claps. The courage to keep going even when you're walking alone. Every person who ever achieved something meaningful had to outgrow the opinions of people who told them they couldn't. Criticism is the price of progress. The higher you climb, the more visible you become, and the more opinions you attract. But not every opinion deserves an answer. If you spend your time responding to everyone who doubts you, you'll never have time to do the work that proves them wrong. Growth demands focus, and focus cannot coexist with constant defense. Let people talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them judge what they don't know. Your evolution will speak for itself when the time comes. The goal is not to be understood by everyone. It's to stay true to your vision even when no one else sees it. Sometimes the hardest part of growth is losing people who were once close to you. You'll notice that when you evolve, certain relationships begin to fade. Not because of arrogance, but because of alignment. Some people loved you when you were less driven, less focused, less determined. The moment you start wanting more, they feel left behind. But that's not your problem to fix. Growth requires space, and not everyone can go where you're going. You have to be okay with being misunderstood temporarily for the sake of being respected permanently. When you stop chasing approval, your confidence changes. You start walking differently because you are no longer defined by opinions. You start trusting your instincts, and that trust becomes your strength. You stop comparing yourself to others because your journey is not a competition, it's a creation. The opinions that once made you doubt yourself begin to sound like background noise. You no longer feel the need to explain or justify. You are at peace with who you are becoming, and that peace becomes your power. Outgrowing opinions also means understanding that not everyone will see your transformation clearly. Some people are too focused on your past to recognize your present. They'll keep reminding you of who you used to be because it's easier for them to understand that version of you. But you are not here to repeat your old story. You are here to write a new one. Growth demands that you let go of the image others have of you, even if it means standing alone for a while. The moment you stop seeking validation, you start experiencing freedom. And that freedom gives you the strength to keep evolving, even when the world isn't ready to accept your change. Real transformation doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in chaos. It happens in those moments when everything feels uncertain, when the plan falls apart, and when you begin to doubt whether you have the strength to keep going. Discomfort is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're evolving. Every person who has ever grown beyond their limits has walked through moments of pain, fear, and doubt. The truth is, growth hurts before it feels good. It breaks you before it builds you. But the struggle is what shapes you. Without discomfort, there is no depth. Without challenge, there is no change. Most people want to evolve, but they don't want to be uncomfortable. They want success without struggle, confidence without rejection, wisdom without experience. But that's not how evolution works. Growth demands that you step into situations that stretch you, that test your patience, and that make you question your limits. The pressure you feel when life gets hard is the same pressure that forms strength. The lessons that hurt the most are often the ones that make you unbreakable. You don't grow when life is easy. You grow when life forces you to become something more than you were yesterday. When you face discomfort, you have two options: resist it or rise through it. The ones who resist it stay the same, trapped by fear and habit. The ones who rise through it, however, become unstoppable. They understand that pain is not permanent, but the progress it creates is. Every failure teaches resilience, every rejection builds humility, every obstacle reveals strength. The key is to stop running from discomfort and start using it. Growth happens when you lean into what challenges you instead of escaping it. Every uncomfortable experience is a silent teacher preparing you for what's next. Transformation requires you to break old patterns. It demands that you let go of the familiar and step into the unknown. That's not easy because the mind loves comfort. It loves repetition. But comfort keeps you stagnant. Growth begins when you're willing to leave behind the version of yourself that feels safe. You can't evolve and stay the same. You can't expect new results while holding on to old habits. The moment you start embracing discomfort instead of avoiding it, your whole perspective shifts. You stop seeing hard times as punishment and start seeing them as preparation. Discomfort builds character. It teaches you patience when things don't go as planned. It teaches you humility when you fail. It teaches you focus when everything feels chaotic. The people who grow the most are not the ones who have it easy. They're the ones who learn how to stay calm in the storm. They keep moving even when they're tired. They keep believing even when results don't show. That's the kind of strength that can't be taught in comfort. It's built in the dark, in silence, in moments when you want to give up but choose not to. Sometimes the pain of growth feels unbearable because it requires you to let go of things that once defined you. Old habits, old beliefs, even old relationships that no longer align with who you're becoming. It's not easy to detach from what's familiar, but that's the cost of evolution. You can't carry your old identity into your new chapter. Growth is a process of shedding comfort, ego, excuses, and fear. Every time you let go of something that no longer serves you, you make space for something better. Discomfort is just a sign that you are stepping into a bigger version of yourself. Those who embrace discomfort understand that it's temporary. The struggle will end, but the strength it builds will stay forever. When you push through challenges, you develop confidence that can't be shaken. You start to realize that if you survived what once scared you, you can handle anything. That mindset is what separates those who evolve from those who explain. Because people who are busy evolving don't talk about how hard it is, they accept it as part of the process. They don't avoid pain, they use it as motivation. They don't complain about the pressure, they learn to perform under it. There will always be moments when you want to quit, when the discomfort feels too heavy, when progress seems invisible. But those are the exact moments when growth is happening beneath the surface. Every step you take, even when it feels small, is movement forward. The hardest days are often the ones shaping your next breakthrough. That's why discomfort is necessary. It doesn't just test your strength, it reveals it. It forces you to become the version of yourself that you didn't know you were capable of being. It strips away your limits and rebuilds you with resilience, patience, and clarity. The people who understand this truth stop fearing discomfort because they know it's the birthplace of evolution. The most powerful response to doubt is not explanation but achievement. When people question your vision, you don't need to argue, you just need to keep building. When they underestimate you, you don't have to prove them wrong through words, you prove them wrong through results. Results are universal. They speak a language that everyone understands. No matter how much people doubt your effort, they can't deny your outcome. That's why the most successful people focus less on convincing and more on creating. They understand that time and consistency will tell their story better than any speech ever could. The truth is, not everyone will understand your process. Some people will misjudge your silence. Others will assume your lack of explanation means you have nothing to show. But the smartest thing you can do is keep working in the dark until your light forces them to notice. There is something powerful about staying quiet while building. It creates a mystery that words could never achieve. People might ignore your efforts now, but they will not be able to ignore your results later. That is the essence of evolution, letting your success explain everything you never said. Results don't come from talking, they come from doing. They are born from repetition, from patience, from the discipline of showing up when no one is watching. Most people quit not because they lack potential, but because they want recognition before the results appear. The ones who truly evolve are those who are willing to stay consistent without applause. They understand that real progress doesn't announce itself, it accumulates quietly. And when it finally shows, it's impossible to overlook. People might question your process for years, but one strong result can silence years of doubt. The beauty of results is that they turn critics into witnesses. The same people who once doubted your ability begin to study your methods. They start asking how you did it, what changed, what made it possible. But by that time, you've already learned the most valuable lesson. You didn't need their belief to succeed. You only needed persistence. You only needed the courage to stay focused while others talked. You only needed the patience to wait for your results to speak. When you reach that point, you realize that your journey was never about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. When you focus on results, you stop wasting time explaining your vision. You stop needing to justify your ambition to people who can't see your purpose. You channel all your energy into execution. Every action becomes intentional. Every failure becomes feedback. Every small win becomes a foundation. You stop overthinking how others perceive your progress because you're too busy making it happen. That mindset separates the dreamers from the doers. Everyone dreams, but only a few are willing to put in the work silently until the dream turns real. Those are the people whose results speak louder than explanations ever could. There's a certain peace that comes with trusting the process. You stop rushing outcomes because you know results come at their own time. Growth doesn't happen overnight, and results that last are never instant. The seed doesn't explain why it's taking time to grow. It just focuses on breaking through the soil. Likewise, you don't need to announce every step of your journey. Keep doing the work, keep improving, keep evolving, and let the outcome be your voice. When your time comes, people will see everything they once doubted. They'll understand that silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. Focusing on results also teaches humility. When you're working hard, you realize how much effort goes unseen. You begin to respect the grind that happens behind every success story. You stop seeking shortcuts because you understand that genuine results require patience, discipline, and consistency. And when your results finally arrive, you don't feel the need to boast. The evidence speaks for itself. That kind of confidence is unshakable because it's built on truth, not talk. The person who learns to let results do the explaining becomes unstoppable because they no longer depend on opinions to feel valid. Results are the final language of credibility. They don't need defense, they don't need argument, and they don't need attention. They are self-explanatory. You can tell people what you're capable of, but showing them is always more powerful. Every result, no matter how small, is proof that effort works. It's proof that consistency wins over explanation. The moment you understand this, your focus changes from talking about what you will do to actually doing it. That shift in mindset is what separates evolution from stagnation. You stop being reactive and start being productive. You stop chasing approval and start chasing mastery. When your results begin to align with your vision, you realize that every doubt, every delay, every silent season was part of the foundation that made your evolution undeniable.